United States women's national team, Lisa, we got to chat about what we think we might see from them. What's the current state of maybe some players? I think we just got to start perhaps, with the biggest ones. We had some. We talked a little bit about in the end of Costa Rica there, talking about Perez coming in and sort of integrating new players in. Ashley Hatch has been pulled from this tournament for the United States women's national team, has gone back home with an injury to the back strain, I believe it was. Sam Coffey has been brought in to sort of close out this tournament, to not quite a like for like player, coming in and coming out there, something to keep an eye on. And we saw Rose Lavelle take a pretty nasty, crunchy challenge in that final group stage with a studs up collision on her ankle between her and Ovia. So there's some things here in terms of personnel that we have to maybe, I think, talk about first before we talk about what we could see or what we would like to see from this team.
Yes, I think we have to talk about that and look at personnel. I think that's maybe a good place to start, looking at the personnel that the United States has, who they're rotating in, and who we'd like to see get the start. I want to start there. Starting with the back and the goalkeepers, we've seen Alyssa Nair get a full game, Casey Murphy get 2 full games, nothing from Aubrey Kingsbury at this point. I still don't think we'll see anything from Kingsbury heading into this semifinal match. Frankly, I've been really impressed with Casey Murphy. I think Blacko could go with her again in this one. However, if he switches back to Alyssa Nair, I'm not really surprised at all in that point. Between those two, pretty much a toss-up for me. I think Casey Murphy's done a good job, though. So to continue to give her 90 minutes, the start, I think would be well worth it for Vlatko Andonovski and his side. And then the back line, I'm gonna lump all these 5 players together in my lineup here, and then I'll let you go, Sandra. Yeah. I want to see consistency in this back line. I'm hoping that Emily Fox is back. She was out for the last match that the United States played against Mexico. She was on COVID protocol. I'm not entirely sure, as it's only been 3 days, if she's back from that yet. However, if she is, I want her to get the start. Now, if she had COVID, can she breathe? Can she play? That's a big factor heading into this one. Her fitness level coming back into it. We talked a little bit about the heat. It's probably going to be 100 degrees. That comes into everything, I think. But if Fox is available, I would like to see her in the left back position. If not, I want to see Huerta and Kelly O'Hara in those outside back roles. And then in the center back position, I want to see Becky Sauerbrunn and Naomi Girma. I think Girma did a fantastic job. I think that she is the future of this team, and playing with Becky and leaning on Becky is incredibly important. It's no knock against Alana Cook. I just think that the ceiling for Girma at this point is higher than Cook's, just based on where she is, how many caps she has under her belts compared to Alana Cook. And honestly, the partnership between Girma and Sauerbrunn, I really like that. And maybe even a Cook and a Girma, but I want Girma to get the start in this back line.
Yeah, I hear you. Of course we're starting with defense, right? That's our bread and butter. That's where we like to shine the spotlight on first. Listen, I'll fully expose us. We didn't think there was going to be rotation at the goalkeeper position going into that final group stage, Lisa. We were like, there's no way that's going to happen.
Nair.
And here comes, Andonovski and company, and they are like, actually, yes, there's going to be Casey Murphy in that. So I'm a little curious if we're going to see her get a consecutive start, right? Because we saw her get that first start, then they brought in Nair, then they brought in Murphy again. Are they going to give a back-to-back start for Murphy in the semifinal of this competition? I'm still a little unclear, a little unsure. Is the mentality to perhaps allow Alyssa Nair to play in a final? Should they go ahead and advance? Are they gonna? Is the idea potentially still they're going to meet Canada in this championship final, and we want to see Alyssa Nair there and that one? Perhaps, I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised, and I also wouldn't be opposed to seeing Casey Murphy get the start in this one if this ends up being a match where they want to play things out that way. I'm with you in terms of seeing the center back pairings. I would like to see Cook and Girma once more. Quite frankly, I really enjoy what we've been seeing out of Naomi Girma this tournament. I think she's unlike maybe some other players in this competition. We've talked a lot about how this roster is one that's been composed of mostly an expanded player pool. We've seen younger players in positions that maybe we didn't anticipate seeing during this time of the year. But I think Naomi Girma, more than some of these other players, more than Nina Smith, more than a Pugh, more than um, you know some other players in the midfield, more than anyone else, has sort of come in and reintegrated themselves into this senior national team and has been asked a lot of. It's not an easy task to sort of get your number called up against ahead of a very important tournament, a World Cup qualifying tournament, and not only get your number called, but be asked to perform and delivered under like very intense circumstances. So the fact that she's already got minutes under her belt in this tournament and has sort of seamed in flawlessly is an absolute delight. It has been a joy to watch Girma grow throughout this tournament. You're not seeing nerves from a player like this. Hasn't was not intimidated by the bright lights of going up against Mexico in front of Mexican fans. And I would like to see her get the start in this one as well. Now, who her center back partner is going to be, not too sure if they're going to put in a Sauer. We're not too sure if they're going to put in a. We'll see what happens. But I know for sure I would like to see Guillermo there. And I think if you're going to be talking about knockout rounds, I'm just going to jump up into maybe the front forward line here. I think you absolutely have to give a look or a nod to Alex Morgan. She went a long time in that Mexico game as well. Unsure like what that's going to look like in this semifinal. I think Rapinoe is someone who's been coming off of the bench for them and will continue to do so. But I'm with you as well too in terms of the outside back position. I don't know if we're going to see an Emily Fox. It's unclear in terms of what the protocol is. Is it due to testing, or is it false negative or false positive? Is it some asymptomatic showing symptoms? I think 3 days might not be enough if it's the latter of that. So we'll see what happens there. But again, if she's out, I would not mind seeing somebody like Sofia Huerta perhaps get an opportunity to get into this match as well, and sort of see what that looks like moving forward. And I also, I want to see this continued development between Huerta and Purse. I think when they have found themselves on the pitch at the same time together, there's been a very kind of special chemistry. It's very early, but you can see it brewing. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. Those are some players that I definitely do want to see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, in the starting 11. But I'm not the coaching staff, Lisa. I'm not the coach. So we'll see.
Well, one day, Sandra, you and I, assisting co-coaches, co-head coaches of the team, and we'll get to put our lineup out there. I agree with Alex Morgan in the front line. I think she deserves the start. I double, triple agree with Midge Purse and how she's been playing with Sofia Huerta in behind her. So this is kind of where my brain is going. If Huerta starts, so if Fox is not available, my starting lineup would be O'Hara and Sofia Huerta in the back line. And if Sofia Huerta starts in the back line, I think Purse should be starting in front of her. So it's a little bit of a trickle effect. However, if it's Emily Fox, I think he's going to go with Kelly O'Hara in the back line as well. So then maybe no Purse in that front line. And maybe they come on together, or Sofia Huerta and Purse rotate on together and then they play in that vertical line. I think Alex Morgan deserves the start in that center striker 9. Especially because there's no one else. Ashley Hatch has gone home. We saw Taylor Korniak rotate into that position, which I think she can do, and she has done, and she will be successful in that center striker number 9 role. If that's where they need her to play, she'll do it. I like Korniak a little bit better in the midfield. I think she has great foot skills and she can flick the ball on, but I think the ball at her feet and her combination play with Morgan in front of her is much more lethal than her playing in that number 9 striker. As it goes for the other 2 forwards in the front line, I really want to see Trinity Rodman get time. I don't think she'll get the start against Costa Rica. Again, I think it'll be Midge Purse if Huerta's in the back line. I think Sophia Smith has done a nice job, maybe even outplayed Mallory Pugh in what we've seen. But I could see it being Pugh and Smith and Alex Morgan in that front line. I like that, and I like what we're seeing there, but not entirely sure about the health of Fox, and that kind of is the trickle effect of how this is going to outplay throughout this game. But I want to see Trinity Rodman get minutes, come in perhaps 45-minute mark. I think it really depends how the first half goes. We saw that in the last match for the United States against Mexico. Vlatko Andonovski wanted his younger players to problem solve, to figure it out as they were going on the field, not just pull them out, not just rotate a Megan Rapinoe in at halftime to get things going and to spark what needs to happen on the pitch. He wanted his newer generation players to figure it out. They didn't, right? I mean, it took them a little bit longer to figure it out. And ultimately, as things started to open up, it came down to veterans. I mean, Christy Mewis scoring the goal and the ball coming in from Rapinoe on the corner kick. So I don't know if we'll see rotation at the 45-minute mark. It just depends on how that first half goes. But I want to see Rodman get time. Now the midfield. Looking at this midfield, I have a question for you about this. Is Andy Sullivan going to start? We saw her start the last match against Mexico. No? Who will start in the number 6?
Probably Lindsay Herrera. That's what they've been doing. They've been running Lindsay Herrera out there endlessly, and we've seen the tape around her knee slowly disappear. But I'm not too sure how she's feeling. On that knee, quite frankly. I just don't see it. I think, especially because that game against Mexico was far more of a grind than they anticipated it to be. And because of it being such a grind, I do not think that they start Andy Sullivan in this one. Although, again, this team has been dealing with some injuries, and there hasn't been 100% clarity on the state of those. And we've talked about that on this show before. We just don't believe that we're actually going to get a full diagnosis or a full, report on what these injuries mean until this tournament is over, quite frankly, because that's typically how it goes in high stakes competitive events like this. There is no actual revelations of the severities of certain injuries until things are at their conclusion.
So no Andy Sullivan in the start. What about Sam Coffey? Will we see?
I was going to say, is this the game where we see Sam Coffey? Is that why you bring in a Sam Coffey in light of losing a center striker? I don't know. I'm baffled sometimes.
I don't think Coffey's going to start. I know
the mentality, I think, in bringing in a Coffey is that you're adding depth to this midfield that has clearly been navigating some struggles in terms of an injury or 2 or 3. And coming off of that game against Mexico, where, again, it was a bit more of a grind than they anticipated. Andy Sullivan is one of those players that we refer to when we're talking about dealing with some injury, as well as Lindsay Herrera. And we can only assume now a Rose Lavelle in that picture as well. So you're talking about 3 players who would maybe in a knockout round game be your typical starters in a tournament like this, as they've been called up. But I'm not too sure what that looks like against Costa Rica, or what the rotation looks like. And honestly, quite frankly, if Sam Coffey gets minutes in this game, should we really be surprised at this point? Because of the rotation that we've seen from this coaching staff in this tournament, it would be a hell of a moment.
It would be amazing. I mean, that's why you bring a player like that in. I don't think we're going to see it, though. I don't think Sam Coffey's going to start.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. It would be crazy to bring in a player that didn't initially make the roster and then give them a start in the semifinal of the Concacaf W Championship. So for that reason only, Sam Coffey will not get the start. That would be.
I respect
However,
it. I'm keeping that 1% open. I'm keeping that window open 1% at least, because I can't be like, there's been a number of times. There have been a number of scenarios now where we've come on this podcast and we're like, hey, like, we didn't think this was never going to happen. And when it happened. I mean, and part of the energy and thinking about bringing in a coffee was the fact that she was a player that had spent time with this team ahead of this tournament.
Yes.
So was already sort of played with, trained with, been surrounded by, immersed in a little bit in this program. But the other side of that is, if you're not giving, that sort of type of energy to a player like Rodman, what are we doing here?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
You're talking about bringing along some of these players who are still new to the team, little by little by little. If they do get, if Coffee is a player that is dressed for this game, maybe some minutes, but I don't imagine that it's going to be extended by any means. So
if no Andy Sullivan, which I agree with that, I don't know if we'll see Lindsey Herrera start. Kristie Mewis will probably get the start in the 6th.
Mewis is the answer, yeah.
Based on injury and what we've seen, Kristie Mewis, when she has rotated in, it's been in that defensive midfielder role, that number 6 position. I think we're going to see Andy Sullivan there. Honestly, I don't know if we'll see Lindsey Herrera. I think it depends on injury at this point. I mean, ideally, I think the starting midfield, it probably is going to happen that Sam Coffey starts, Sandra. It probably is, because we're talking about it. But in an ideal world, she'd message me. Happen. Yeah, it probably is.
It's like hitting you now. You're like, you know what?
That's why.
The fact that it seems so impossible and we're on a live means that it's probably going to happen.
And that's fine. That's why we're here to talk about it. I'm okay with eating my words. I just think it would be crazy to bring a player in and then start them in a semifinal game. Yes, it all comes down to injuries, but the ideal starting 3 would be, I think, Lindsey Herrera, Rose Lavelle, and Ashley Sanchez for this match, based on their performances throughout this tournament so far. Now, injury comes into that. Rose Lavelle, at this point, we do not know her status of her ankle after that roll. She could have rubber ankles and be fine. Just tape it up a little bit tighter next match, go out there and play. Honestly, I think we could see that. So Rose Lavelle, and I think Ashley Sanchez deserves a triple start. This will be the 3rd game in a row for her. She started the last 2 for Vlatko Andonovski against Jamaica and against Mexico. And I think she did a tremendous job. Having her in there alongside Rose Lavelle plays to Ashley Sanchez's strengths more so than playing alongside a Lindsey Herrera in that role with an Andy Sullivan. So I think that we'll see Lindsey Herrera. I think we'll see Ashley Sanchez and Rose Lavelle, frankly, get the start in this one, depending on injury, right?
Yeah, if they're able to go, I think that's ideal. I think you want to have this type of, attacking minded kind of midfield going up against, a Costa Rican side that might be, preparing to sort of present you with this sort of mid to low block. So I think we're talking ideal, like ideally, if everything, comes out and plays out well, injuries aside, that's the ideal, type of attack or type of midfield that we want to see aiding the attack in this game. But they're still into this semifinal. A lot of unknowns, I think, but
so many unknowns. Who knows? Maybe Kristie Mewis, right? If she's
been subbing in as the 6, why not give her the start?
I know. See what she can do from the get-go in this match. So I'm still going to go Herrera, Lavelle, and Sanchez in the midfield. Now, if Lavelle is out, if she's dealing with a bit of an ankle injury and you want her for the championship game, maybe she does get some rest. Who do you think he should start in that position instead?
Oh, man.
Taylor Korniak.
I mean, we saw him bring in Taylor Korniak as a center striker. That's what I'm saying. I don't, it's unpredictable. I will give it this. I will say this. If not for nothing else, we are officially now, as audiences of this tournament, we are watching this in the knockout rounds, and we are still talking about unpredictable lineups and unpredictability within substitutions. in this match. We're already in the semifinal, and it's not been something that we've been able to iron out or say this is what it's going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, I
would have thought that this would have been. I would have thought that this would have been something that was, ironed out, settled out, going into this knockout round. But that hasn't been the case. It hasn't been the case.
And so maybe we'll see Andy Sullivan actually start in there, and then Lindsay Herrera and Ashley Sanchez if Lavelle is injured. I think that rotates things around. Christy Mewis also can play higher, so maybe it would be Lindsay Herrera in the 6, Ashley Sanchez, Christy Mewis playing a little bit higher, whether it's that 8-10 attacking midfielder role, and then she can always slot back for Lindsay Herrera. They could rotate, right? If Taylor Korniak does rotate into that center midfield role, it could be either for Herrera or Mewis, and then the other one, Mewis, can just drop back.
I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think this is going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen. But who has actually sometimes played a little bit lower at times for her club is Mallory Pugh. But I don't believe that's going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
If
anything, I think we would see a defender play a bit higher. Maybe he would slot Girma into that.
Oh no! Do you disrupt what she's been doing so far?
No, but what if you don't have any? Well, they have options. They have Christy Mewis to slot in that role. Because they have more forwards, right? You could throw Trinity Rodman in that center number 9 striker. You can and drop Taylor Korniak into the midfield. You could throw Midge Purse in the back line if you needed to. There are options. There are options.
I think there are options. I think at this point, if it's for me,
and Sandra, maybe
you got to give Christy Mewis a start. I would want to see her in the 6, but I like Christy Mewis is a player that I like higher, quite frankly. And if Lavelle is unavailable for this match, or if the mindset is preserve what Lavelle has to offer for something like the final, why not play Mewis higher and then put Sullivan and Herrera back out there and see what they look like? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Maybe we'll see Mewis get the start. I would be happy for that to see, even if she's in the 6, because clearly they're seeing something in the 6 with Mewis there, and she's stepped in and played that 6. Now it's different. It's a different role for her, and she's still adjusting to that. And I mean, the fact that we're talking about this and saying there are options is also a little scary, that it's not solidified.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know what? It's not, though. That's the other thing about this. That's the other thing about this for me. It's actually not that scary because they're just that good. There's been this is like real first world USWNT problems. It's
complete
champagne
problems.
It's complete. There's so many options that we don't know what the team is going to look like, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're going to go out there and they're going to do what they have been doing this entire tournament.
Yep.
This entire tournament.
Coffee will get the start. Mewis will get the start.
And we're gonna come on here and there's a very, very likely possibility that we're gonna come right back on this show and talk about how they won and are now going to the final. And none of that's gonna matter anymore. Yep. It's just hilarious to me. It's like we're going back and forth and people have a lot of feelings about it and they want to, call for Andonovsky's head, and I get it. That's part of talking about sports at its highest level, right? But they are in first place. They've clinched their World Cup. They are going to go up against Costa Rica, who they have a strong history against, and they are likely going to put together a good performance. And it's just not going to matter. We're just going to come back on here and be like, so anyway, that was fun talking about all that, and here they are going to the final. So it's going to be.
It always matters. The conversation always matters because we get to debate about it. People get to join us in the chat and tell us what they think, who's going to be in there. I see people jumping in saying champagne problems. Yes, we appreciate it, honestly.
Chat
Crystal Dunn is so missed, but it matters because we get to speculate on it and talk about it and then see how it plays out and evaluate the players and their performances in those roles and what they were able to do, perhaps being thrown into a different situation than they were prepared for or used to.
So then let's do this. Let's close out this a little not different, but let's close the chapter on this preview, and let's at least put a scoreline on it. Then let's put a scoreline on it. What do you think the scoreline is going to be in this game?
Okay. U.S. is coming off of a 1-0 over Mexico. I say 3-0.
3-0.
3-0.
Okay. I'm gonna go 4. I'll go 4.
You think there'll be a hat trick? There is yet to be one.
That's a good one. Yeah, you did open the show with that.
Hat trick.
No, I think maybe there'll be a brace, but I don't know if it'll be a hat trick.
Okay. I don't think there'll be a hat trick.
I'm gonna say 4-0. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say cozy.